To have passion in life is everything.
What's your Everest?
Oh,
Is it
yeah.
that 200-inch buck?
They just look so impressive when they're wide.
Especially running away.
Welcome to this week's episode of Eastmans Elevated.
It's like a think tank for outdoor activity.
Sounds exactly like my hunting. Just always thinking about it, always trying to evolve it and make it better.
Here's your host, Brian Barney.
Hey, what's happening, guys? Got a brand new Eastmans Elevated for you. So on today's podcast, I have on my buddy Dillon Ness. So I really like Dillon. I met him a handful of years ago, and we've been hunting and fishing together ever since. The guy's an animal with a bow in his hands. We talk about it on the podcast, hunting different species in different habitats, just developing our bow hunting skill set. And Dillon has definitely done that, and he knows how to be consistently successful with his bow in his hands. He's a great shot, great hunter, and so that's a lot of what we talk about in the podcast. He had just harvested a spring bear with his bow, which I was really impressed by in this new mountain range. So we talk about that. We also get into elk hunting spot and stalk, and kind of adapting to the conditions we're given. He's killed some great bulls. He's killed some great antelopes, some great bucks. Just a great all-around bow hunter and an awesome conversation. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I want to thank my sponsors for today's show. I want to thank Matthews Bows. Dillon is also shooting the new V3X. This thing is shooting, guys. One of the best bow I have ever owned. I'm really getting along with this thing good. It shot great for me in Hawaii. Reminds me I need to get on and record a solo about that Hawaii trip, as it was an amazing adventure. But shot great for me in Hawaii, shooting great for me on 3Ds and on targets. This is a deadly bow, you guys. Really holds its tune well. It is super forgiving, and it's built tough for the backcountry. I couldn't be more impressed by the bows that they're producing, especially like the last 5 years have been amazing, and every year they seem to outdo themselves, and they have done that with that V3X. So if you're in the market for a new bow, go shoot one of these things. They're so quiet, so forgiving, so accurate, easy to tune, just amazing bows. So thanks to Matthews for partnering with the podcast. I really appreciate it. I also want to thank Sig Sauer Optics. Sig Sauer Optics are building just amazing optics at a great price point. I love their binos, their spotting scope. I love their rangefinders. I believe their rangefinders are the best in the market. They shoot the same on light and dark targets. They have a powerful laser that'll shoot through grass, real accurate readings. I believe that range finding is a skill, and it's a skill that not a lot of us work on, and it's so crucial and critical to making a good shot as having a good range and having a good rangefinder that'll do angles, give you accurate readouts. Just amazing rangefinders. So if you're in the market, make sure to check out Sig Sauer. I'm also so impressed by their image stabilizing binoculars. I think this is the greatest innovation to hit the hunting world in the last 10 years. To flip a switch and have these things totally steady, I just spot more game with them. And I have my buddies switched over. In fact, Dillon has used a pair of mine. He'll have them this year. I got my buddy Dan hooked on them. They're just amazing. They you flip that switch, everything gets still, and you can just see more detail up close and far. So these things are really spotting a lot more game for me. They have two different pairs, the 10 by 32s, which are perfect around the neck and in close and in stalking. They also have a pair of 16 by 45s, I believe. And that 16 is great everywhere I sit down and super lightweight. And a lot of times in my hunting, it's taking the place of a scope. I can see everything I need with them, but all amazing optics. I also have a rifle scope that I put on my new Savage 6.5 Creedmoor that's shooting real good for me. So anything optics, make sure to go check out Sig Sauer. They're doing an amazing job with them. Over at Eastman's, we're keeping busy. We just released the latest high country film. It was a Nevada hunt I did last year. It turned out really well. I'm really proud of it, and got a bunch of compliments on it. So make sure to check that out on Beyond the Grid. And yeah, we have some new episodes that are hitting. I know I have some other mule deer episodes. Dan's got an elk episode that's coming out, and some other great ones. He killed a great bull in Wyoming this year. So be on the lookout for the Beyond the Grid. You can search Eastman's Hunting TV on YouTube, and you can find us there. We will be speaking live coming up in July. So we're going to be, I keep saying Heber City. I think it's Heber City, Utah. So just south of Salt Lake there. We're going to be at the Fieldcraft Survival headquarters. We're going to be talking about elk and mule deer. I have an hour talk planned, and then we're going to have a dinner. We'll do question and answers. So we'll be able to hang out and chat. So if you're in the neighborhood, that's going to be the same weekend as they do TAC in Salt Lake City in Utah. Make sure to come check us out. You can get your tickets at Fieldcraft Survival on their website, and come out and listen to us speak live. I'm super excited for it. So we're going to be speaking there, and it's going to be busy. Like after the 4th, the summer flies by, you know. So where summer's going to go quick and fall's going to be here before we know it. And found out that I've got an early bow hunt coming up here, so super pumped about that. It's going to be a great season. So getting in my runs, I got about 4 or 5 weeks left to get the roof on my house. So things are going good here, and really nice to have a couple days off over the 4th and spend it with family. And I did get out with Dillon, do a little fly fishing as well. So it's just a great reset for the rest of the summer here. But anyways, go check us out, Heber City. We're going to be speaking. It's going to be July 20th, and you can get your tickets, Fieldcraft Survival. All right, guys. Let's get into this podcast. It's a great one. My buddy Dillon Ness. I'm your host, Brian Barney, Eastmans Elevated. Here we go.
Morning.
Yo, what do you know?
Oh, handling the kid.
Yeah, good. Helping out the wife. How's the kid doing?
Good. He's doing good. Just no night, no morning, no day is the same, man. It's like, holy smoke. Some days are great. Other days it's like, dude, what do you want?
A kid, they're so difficult, aren't they? Like everybody tells you about being a parent and being ready for it, but it's just non-stop with them. It's like when they're a baby, they need everything. Like they you just have to provide. It is pretty non-stop when they're awake, especially after they're a newborn. They're awake quite a bit, but man, it's a lot. Like even the good kids cry a lot, and it's like trying to fix that or make that right is really tough. Those women have such good patience, and it doesn't come naturally for us guys. I think we have to work at it.
I definitely have to work at it because Jeannie is like all world mom, and I'm like, he cries for 5 minutes, and I'm like, babe, what is going on with this guy? She goes, try hanging out with him for 12 hours. I'm like, oh, true. Okay. Well, yeah, I won't complain. So no, I'm pretty spoiled, dude. Jeannie is so good. So it makes life easy on me, but still it's like, I try and lighten the load. It's like pouring rain today and stuff, so I ain't going to be working. And it's like, try and help out, but it's like, oh my gosh, I might have to make something up to go into town.
Yeah, I hear you. No, good on you. I know you're helping out all the time over there, but yeah, those moms take so much of the brunt of it. And, you know, when they're feeding the kid and stuff, like when the kid wakes up crying, you know, a lot of times it's, you know, because he wants to be fed or whatever, which is only what mom can fix, you know, unless they, you know, whatever, you know, pumping or whatever, you know, producing milk, or like there's a bunch of different ways they can do it. But yeah, man, it's tough. You just try to be as good a father as you can and jump in and give them some relief, you know, like just an hour or two of sanity is huge, you know. So yeah, you're doing the right thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I'm sure I say it'll get easier, but everybody says it won't. But as long as I still get to sneak out and go hunt and fish, I'm all right. I'll live.
Yeah, dude.
So.
I miss these mornings. We used to do these on the regular. Like we were doing the Flycast together. Man, I really enjoy the end of doing that podcast, and we put everything on hold. It's you know, Eastman's invested a couple of years in it, and I just had a tough time monetizing it. But man, the end of that podcast, doing it with you, was so fun.
Yeah. The early mornings and evening and late evenings, it was a riot. It's just fun talking all the time. Gives us an excuse to get on the phone and just chat for an hour and a half for, every other week, every week. Yeah, that was enjoyable. So it's nice to be back chatting. I know we just talked the other day, but gosh, I could talk hunting all day.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah, me too. Yeah, we'll who knows? Maybe it'll pick up popularity. All the episodes are still out there, or I'll have you signed up for something. Who knows? Maybe we'll do like a regular hunting podcast every couple weeks or something. So we'll get something
Cool.
in the works, man. Because I just love chatting with you, dude. I am so impressed at your bow hunting prowess. Like we've been bow hunting together the last few years, and I knew you had that it factor, but to watch you develop, and you shot a bunch of trophies before we started hunting together, but just to watch your skills develop, to be able to go to these different places, these different habitats, different species, and watch you figure it out, and then also like just watch you work on all these skill sets, from physical training to shooting your bow. You're an unreal shot with your bow. Man, it's just been super impressive, man. I'm so impressed with what you've accomplished in like this latest feat of taking a black bear, spot and stalk with your bow and arrow, and all on your own, a mountain range that you found and put in your time and developed, and then to go arrow a bear like that, entry level dangerous game, man. I'm so impressed.
Yeah, no, thanks, man. The last handful of years, ever since you and I really started, hunting and fishing together, and I switched over to just strictly hunting with the bow. Gosh, it's crazy how fast. I mean, I was always capable, and like you said, I killed a handful of really good, deer and elk with my bow, but once I switched over to bow only and just all year, that's all I did. Shoot my bow, work out. It's amazing how fast my skill sets that I had before even improved. And, getting to hang around you and Dan, it's just the knowledge I got to soak up. I'm spoiled in that regard. It's like getting to learn, pick up things from you. And that's what's really helped me, like say this bear season too. It's like, just always learning, always listening, and it's just it's totally starting to come full circle for me. And it's like I was just thinking about this last night. It's like I'm really just getting into where I'm really feeling dangerous. Like go out there and it's not just packing my bow around, it's like, okay, if I find a good one, I just need to find them in a good spot, and the thing's in trouble. And that bear, that was high on my priority list this year, was to get a good bear arrowed. And that spot, it turned into a really, really good spot. And last year I got to go out a couple times, but the quota ended up filling super fast. And so I was just, kind of, I went over, I think you and I went out a couple times, but it snowed. But yeah, this year just everything worked out. I spent a few days in there, got a couple different stalks, and when I saw that big red cinnamon bear, I just was like, oh my gosh, game on.
He has a beautiful bear, man. Beautiful color phase, big head on him. Just a great one. Great representation of the species. And yeah, like your commitment to the bow. Isn't it amazing? Like there's so much, and I don't fault anybody for taking advantage of all seasons, and I learned so much hunting through rifle seasons, and I'm sure
Hmm.
you did too. You
Oh yeah.
paid your dues and you hunted during those seasons. Like, it teaches you how to deal with high pressure. The animals, they're really put away during those seasons, so I learned a lot. But it's amazing once you fully commit to that bow hunting and the bow hunting mindset, and then you go as hard or harder than you ever went, during rifle season. You just have this calling to be out with your bow and arrow, and that's like, your bear was shot during a general rifle season and you've never killed a bear. Like, you just
Yep.
are committed to a bow and arrow. But it's wild when you commit to that, you spend all your time doing that and preparing for those moments, and keeping in a bow hunter mindset. Like you said that the other day, you're always
Hmm.
thinking of the stalk and the wind. And so and you're able to keep calm. It gets to feeling normal. Like what's some of the biggest changes that you saw in your hunting career once you committed to the bow? Why do you think you're seeing so much success now?
Well, I think like say spring bears, say like these bear hunts this spring. Um I've been hunting with we hunted all the way basically till January, last year. And so every year it always used to feel like, say like that first few antelope stalks or those first few elk stalks, it felt like I was, had to get my feet wet and get back into it. And I wasn't 100% sure of my moves, and making the play. And it's like now I didn't skip a beat, it just feels ingrained now. It's like getting in the bow range just feels ingrained in me now. And it's like I don't have to question my moves. It's like now it's just starting to become second nature. Like say like the first the first stock I had on a really big jet black, it was like, man, I was just straight Zen mode. Like I got to 70, and I knew that I didn't want to take a longer shot on one of these bears. I just wanted to be really close. And I would have been able to shoot over these tall aspens. I was kind of elevated, but then I would just slipped off my shoes, got in my socks, and got down into 46, 44. The wind ended up swirling on me on that bear. And looking back, if I could have found a window through the aspens, I would have been fine. But I also should have I played it perfect. There was a directional right to left, but that was blowing up canyon and it was getting late, right? And I knew in the back of my mind that, hey, there's some clouds and some storms rolling in and the thermals are going to switch. And so I kind of positioned myself kind of not upwind of the bear, but kind of right at him. So if the thermals did switch, now granted he blew out, but then, a few days later I went in after the cinnamon bear and it was early. And I didn't even have to question what the wind was doing down there or anything. Just always being in a bow hunter's mindset, he was kind of up into a chute on this pocket park, and I knew the thermals were going to be coming down. Like it was just one of those deals that's like, now spending enough time in the mountains with my bow in my hands, it's like it was super early in the morning. And yeah, I just think carrying around my bow, getting into bow range all year. I mean, from start to finish. Granted, this is my first bear and my first spring really out in the mountains, but spending all fall with my bow, it's like I don't question my moves anymore. It's like I know when it's time to go all in. I know when things aren't maybe quite right. But yeah, I would just say always being in a bow hunter's mindset, always thinking about it. That's really what's elevated my game, and I don't have to question those moves like that anymore. It's like I know when the right move is needed to be made and it's time to go all in, and I know when it's not. And the other thing, I have a problem when it comes to shooting my bow. I mean, I shoot thousands upon thousands, like probably everybody, but I mean thousands of arrows a year. I mean, 100 arrows a day is usually nothing for me after work, but I'm just so confident with when I bend them back. It's like when I bend them back, it's like it's never 100%, but I feel so confident. Like, yeah, it's wild. But I'd say probably just I don't question my moves during the stalk and making those plays. And when it's go time and it's time to bend them back, it's like I feel so confident that, yeah, I feel like Superman with a bow.
Man, it's just spot on, Dillon. Like, it's everything in its entirety, right? It's your preparation, and then it's, I've always said, like, experience is the best teacher. And, where you used to spend September bow hunting, maybe a touch in October, now you're hunting muleys in November and December, and you're hunting early season high country stuff in August, beginning of September before your elk season. So, like, you're gaining so much more experience, so that makes sense. Like in the mountains, you've gained your confidence. You've put in your time, your hours, your days. You've gained all this experience in this short amount of time, and in that time, even though you don't realize you're doing it, you're like honing your instincts, your skill set. And so I know what you're talking about. In the early days of bow hunting, it's like a gray area whether you're going to go for an animal or whether you're going to stalk them. You don't know if it's wrong or right. You start on your stalk and you start second guessing yourself. And after a while, you make enough of these plays, you fail enough, you learn like what you can get away with and what you can't, what's going to work and what's not going to work. And that has to do with the wind, with your approach, with the animal. Like you just get to develop this sixth sense of what these animals are going to do. You start to develop this sense of what you can do and what you can't do in the mountains, and having that confidence or knowing that is the key, and that's kind of what switches around. And two, you prove to yourself that you can do it. When you first start out with a bow, it seems like mission impossible to get close, but after you get it right a couple times, like you start to believe in yourself and your abilities that you can arrow any animal out there. And so that makes total sense that that's turning the corner. And as far as your shooting, like you're just committed to living a bow hunting lifestyle. Like you're 365 shooting that bow. And I know, it shows itself, and yeah, everybody shoots their bow, but I don't think everybody has the commitment that you do day in, day out to shoot those arrows, shoot those different ranges, really put in the practice. And it shows, like in the mountains with the animals that you're able to arrow, like you're clutch with the bow in your hands, but it also shows, you started shooting indoor this year, and you were telling me some of your scores with the bow hunting rig, which is just insane to be shooting, 295 plus on a Vegas target with your bow. It's crazy good. And like Dan, our buddy that we hunt together with, Dan Hevern, who is a great bow hunter, great instincts, great shot. He has told me a few times, and Dan doesn't say that about a lot of people. He's like, man, that Dillon can shoot a bow. He's so impressed by the way you can shoot. And that having that skill set is a major advantage in the mountains. So putting in that work 365, and you've done exactly what I have done in my bow hunting life of shooting a bunch of arrows, trying to find the right way to execute deep down the rabbit hole of archery and bow setup and tuning. You've learned everything about a bow and arrow that you can learn, and you're continuing to learn and evolve and get better the same as I am, but you've just put in that work to be that good shot and have that that skill set when you go into the mountains, and that's deadly, man, to be able to make a shot. So I definitely think those two key components, and there's a bunch of other things that go along with that too, like learning these new units and things. But, I think it's also important to state, like I tell people all the time, I'm a really good bow hunter because I've failed more than the average guy. And I think as much success as you had, you have also tasted failure. Like, when you first started hunting high country mule deer, you didn't fill out on your first hunt. Like you had to go back after it and regroup, recalibrate, and go back after it the next year. Spring bear. Last year you went after it and did not kill a spring bear. And I'm sure you went harder this year. You had a better game plan. You were able to recalibrate. You were able to take the knowledge you gained in the mountain range where you killed your bear and progress it further down the line, and you went harder. You recalibrated. So I think it's important to state, like, your success hasn't come without failure either. Like, you have failed during elk seasons and on big bulls, and as clutch as you are, you're not immune to failure either.
No, I couldn't agree more. It's like that first, and I know I've said this on the podcast a long time ago, but it's like that first high country hunt that I went into down in Nevada. And I was telling my parents this the other night when they came out to look at my bear, and I was telling them it's like stepping into those mountains for the first time, and those mountains are big, but I mean they're not Colorado big. But it was a daunting task, and I was kind of intimidated. But I went in there and feeling kind of like that, because I hadn't spent enough time in big mountains. And on that hunt, I got a great opportunity at a smasher buck, and it didn't work out. And for that whole year, I mean, a whole year, that is literally, and that year I shot a 360-inch bull, but it's like the only thing I thought about that whole year was that Nevada hunt that I didn't fill out on. I just thought about the moves that I made, what I could have done different, and then fast forward to last year, going into Colorado, it's like I knew some. I still didn't have a ton of experience, but the mountains didn't cast a shadow over me, or didn't make me feel the same way I felt in Nevada. I felt more comfortable, and it was more like my playground at that time. And those mountains are huge, like. But I had the years experience, a year's prior's experience of failure, and what I did wrong and what I did right. But say like in Colorado last year, I was on just a smoker buck, and it didn't work out with that buck, and it was like day 6 or day 7, and instead of packing it up and heading off the mountain, like when it didn't work in Nevada, when I got down, I rolled out, I rolled through a saddle, and I was like, I'm gonna go look in that basin over there. So that the failure in Nevada led to the success in Colorado, and I ended up arrowing a good old goofy big high country buck, and it's like without that failure in Nevada, that success in Colorado probably wouldn't have came, because I probably would have walked my sorry butt off the mountain all bummed out because a high 180-inch buck left the basin on me. Same with the bear. Last year I got my feet wet with it, but like you said, I had a better game plan going into this year, because I had all year to think about the things that went wrong and the things I could do better. And it's just, without those failures, I wouldn't appreciate the successes as much. I mean, I would, but I don't think success would come as often without failing a few times. It's like our late season deer hunt that you, Dan, and I went on. It's like I've thought about that one. Oh, every week I think about that. I cannot wait to get back to that place. It was like the coolest day ever when you packed that big old gnarly buck off the mountain, and I was there waiting at the pickup, and it's like, that's what I want now. It's like, and I had some chances. It wasn't like I didn't have any chances, but it's like I think about that hunt, and so that's the one that's I'm really, really looking forward to this year, because it's like I've spent 1 year in there, and I know that's a hard place to hunt. But watching you pack that big buck off the mountain, it's like, okay, it can be done. It can be done. So yeah, no, the failures definitely lead to successes, and it's just knowledge. You're just gaining that knowledge throughout time, and it's like it's hard to roll out there year one, day one, and get it done all the time. But it's like you've always got to be learning.
And you are always learning. Yeah, it's amazing how those failures, they do drive us more than our successes. And so you're right, like failure is a prerequisite. Like you were gonna fail because it's like a really tough challenge. And that doesn't mean you're gonna fail on every hunt, but yeah, you gotta get those failures in like that persistence, that always want more, that drive, like that's so important to be a successful bow hunter. So like you take for instance like this bear hunt, like you stalked a giant jet black and it went wrong and he winded you, and when they wind you, they usually know you're there and they're tough to catch up to again. You usually never see those bears again, and so it would have been really easy. And I truly believe that's why I'm so impressed by that black bear, Dylan, because I think spot and stalk black bears, like here in Montana, I think they're one of the toughest animals to harvest with a bow. At least they have been for me. Like I have to grind through a season to make it happen. But what was so impressive is that jet black, it got screwed up. But that just made your fire burn hotter. Like you didn't get that bear, and then you're right back out there on Tuesday or Monday or whatever day it was. Tuesday. That you were right back out there and trying to make it happen again, and it would have been easy to call it quits after that jet black didn't come together. He winded me. That was my chance. Oh, poor me. Bear season's over. Or, like you're talking about your high country mule deer. Exact same thing. You were chasing a monster up there in that basin, had a hiker blow out your giant buck that you were after, and so you were left in the mountains. And also, that was a solo backpacking bow hunt, like the purest form of bow hunting in some of the biggest mountains in the lower 48. All these are new units to you because you are so young and haven't traveled across the country yet, although you're gaining that experience going to different places and different habitats, Arizona and Nevada and Colorado and all these places. But still, you had never stepped foot in that unit. You were able to turn up bucks chasing a giant in there, and he got spooked out of the basin. And so it would have been really easy for you to give in and say, well, That was my high country mule deer hunt. The buck I was after, the great big one, he got spooked. I hunted for him for a bunch of days, but instead you like didn't give into it. You like you went you recalibrated while you're in the mountains and go, no, I'm gonna continue to go hard. There's other bucks around, and you ended up arrowing this great heavy buck, and then about killed yourself trying to get him out of the mountains by yourself.
Yeah, I did about kill myself trying to get out of the mountains. Yeah, that was a rodeo, but it was totally worth it. And to be completely honest, like that pack out taught me a lot too, because it's like capable of a lot more than even what I think I can do. Because it was like that was not ideal. Nothing about packing that deer out was ideal, but it just it goes back to like what has changed in my mindset. And like that right there, I didn't think I was capable of that. Camp, full deer, I don't even know how many miles. But the other thing is like there was that day, the day that you killed your deer, your late season deer, and you and I are sitting there at the pickup, and we're looking at these big mountains, and you're like, well, if you want to go there, I can go there. You should hunt up over the top. And I'm looking at this mountain and it's like I'm looking at the watch, and it's like 2:30. I'm like, up over the top, like. Oh my God. And sure enough, it's like back in the day, I would have looked at that range and I would have looked a lot lower, like, oh, I can only make it to here, and it's like, but no, that day where you went, where I went, it's like the elevation and the distance from the pickup that we covered in that amount of time, it's like, and then we got in deer. You ended up killing a deer. I got into deer. But it's like also this bear season, I just know more of what I'm capable of. And it's like, I didn't think anything of dropping 700-800 feet down a mountain face to climb up again to go stalk a bear. And if it didn't work out, come back, come back up. It's like, I don't see the mountains. That's what's changed a lot for me too, is I don't see the mountains so much as just, huge and you can't tackle it. And it's like, oh my gosh, when you bow hunt, you better be ready in those type of mountains to do stuff like that if you want to find success, That's the one thing I feel like that's been awesome over the past probably 3-4 years is just realizing like, oh no, I can go there and I will go there because that's where they live.
It's so it's such a big deal, like so important, Dylan. It's like you're right. You push perception in your mind. Like all of a sudden, like it seems like when you start bow hunting, like you have these limitations of what you can do and where you can go and how far you can walk, but you start to shatter that and you start to like break your governor to where you're willing to do whatever it takes to go kill a deer and elk, and you have confidence in your body. Like you know that you're in great shape, you're an athlete, and you know that I can do that. I can do whatever. You look at the mountains differently. It's not so much of a challenge, and you don't care if you have to come back in the middle of the night. You don't care if you got to start early in the morning, and you really push what you're capable of and what you believe in yourself and what you can do. And man, that late season hunt, man, what an awesome hunt. What a grinder, man. I mean, we got our pickups way up to the top of the mountain and stuck. And the day I killed my buck, there was actually guys glassing down below that didn't have the gusto to go climb where we did. Like when we pulled up, we actually had to switch areas. So we were camped at the top of the mountain. We chased a bunch of bucks up there. We all had close calls, and then it just like over time, 3 of us hunting that spot. Eventually, we hunted it out to where we chased about every good buck in there, and there just wasn't much more opportunity. So we had to chain up. Well, I chained up my rig, and then we had to do a convoy down out of the mountains in slick roads and like you're really like I almost slid my truck over off the edge into the timber. Like we had to dig on that thing for a couple hours. But my point is like when we switched mountain ranges and we went over there and I told you, I've seen some bucks in this range and this is where I've seen them and these are a couple hunts that I know about. Like let's go in here. We'll split up. You're gonna go left up this main ridge. I've seen shooter buck here, and here, and I'm gonna go up this right ridge and look into this canyon that I really want to hunt. I had a close call with a buck in there the year prior or a couple years prior or something like that. And when we left, there was guys with spotting scopes down in the bottom, and not, it's good to glass and know where bucks are, and who knows what those guys' game plan was, but, they're sitting at the bottom and glassing, and me and you just get out of the truck and just start motoring up that mountain, and it's just like, we just don't have a quit in us, and our perceptions of the mountains are different. We're able to cruise those mountains, and man, I killed that great buck, and I'll always remember that too. Packing him down in the dark, and we had been hunting deep snow, cold weather, rutting bucks, and that buck was just amazing. Sure, he doesn't score real heavy, but doesn't score real high, but really heavy, dark horned, extra, just a great buck. And then come down to meet you at the vehicle. I don't think I had sent you any messages or anything, so I just showed up with him. After 7 days or 8 days of hunting our asses off, we were able to arrow that buck. But then you continued to hunt that mountain range and developed our knowledge even further in there. You went back and made another trip. You backpacked into the ridge up there. You chased a great wide buck, another solid 4-point. You took my knowledge and what I'm willing to do in there, and you pushed it to another level, taking your camp with you and being able to explore that mountain. And so it's like always progressing, right? And
Yep.
I don't know where that ends or what that end game is, but the end game is that there's no buck too far, no buck that, there's nothing that we're not willing to do to give ourselves the best chance at success. And that's what you find. That's like a lot of the reason why we find success.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's just always like when I went back in there, it's like, gosh, if I can get there in a day, like when you and I went, if I can get there in a day, oh my gosh, I need to get back to here. Like nobody's going there, and then some guy came in through private with an ATV and blew my deer out again. But it's like, oh my gosh, but it's like just finding those spots and just keep going. And it is totally perspective, because I mean, I don't want to keep bringing up the the mountains like that, but like say Colorado, there's no mountains I've ever stepped in that are like that. So perspective wise, like when I came home last year after Colorado, I didn't have a special elk permit, so I had to hunt general, right? And so I had to go into a mountain range where I never had any success, and my goal was to kill a bull. And it's like, I used to think these mountains were so gnarly. Well, then you step foot in them, and it's like, I didn't know gnarly before. It's like these are nothing now, and it's like, then there was no elk too far for me to go chase. I mean, I shot that bull way back there, probably further back than I should have, had to shuttle him out over 2 days, but it was like there was no bull that was too far for me to go after then, and it was all perspective. I mean, 7 years ago, where I ended up killing that bull, I would have never even went there, because it's like I would have just hunted the same old, haunts and the same drainages and just did my thing. But it's like, no, I just kept expanding. And, when we go back to that late season deer next year, we're going to have to expand even more, and it's just like taking the prior knowledge, the experience, and a different perspective, and just keep going for it. I mean, I don't know, like you said, I don't know where it ends, but it's probably on the pavement on the far other side on the other highway, like pick me up over there, I'm going to hunt it all the way through. So pretty wicked.
Yeah, that progression is so important. I think you're spot on, Dylan. I think we're touching on something like the two bow hunters that absolutely love it, like talking about what has made us successful. And there's so many different facets that we can go down about what it is, but a lot of it is in our own heads and the progression of things. And a guy gets pretty dangerous once you get experience in a unit, and it's not going back and hunting the exact same spots. It is pushing that knowledge further and exploring that unit further and getting a better understanding of it. But I think these challenges that we're taking on, I don't think you have the growth if you get stuck in a rut and you hunt one mountain range or one drainage, you find a good spot and you continue to go back to the honey hole. Eventually that honey hole dries up and then you're lost. Then you don't know where to go. But when you build this progression and this skill set, going to all these different places, like taking on these different challenges, I think it really helps progress your skills as well. Like you hunting these deer in the early season in the high country and hunting, multiple different states. You go to different mountain ranges and you find, they're all mule deer bucks, and they act the same in a lot of ways, but they all they all coexist in that habitat differently. Like they use that habitat differently. And some mountain ranges I go in, I find them all on south faces. Other mountain ranges I go in, I find them all on north faces. Like they use that landscape differently wherever they're living at. And so I think it's important to go to these different mountain ranges. And the biggest skill set, or the thing that I'm most impressed like by you, is to be able to go to these different places, dial them in, figure them out, find animals, and then harvest them. Just like your general elk last year, a mountain range that you hadn't hunted much and that you scouted hard, found good locations, did your e-scouting, got in there, put boots to ground, and then ended up arrowing a bull out of there, like your bear spot, like figuring it out, going in there last year and getting a taste of it and seeing some bears, but really dialing it in, looking for the secluded basins, looking for other areas, taking what you learned last year and progressing it to the next level, and then going in there and being successful. And the same thing, late deer hunts, hunting elk in different mountain ranges, hunting mule deer early season, late season, mid season in different ranges, and then being able to have all these skills at your disposal, whether it's like, being a great a truck hunter. Like, a truck hunting gets a bad rap, but a lot of these hunts, the units are so big, you're trying to cover 300 square miles, and there's a lot of square miles that don't hold deer populations. Like, they're not spread out all out throughout the landscapes. There's like little hot pockets of them where there's good game animals. And so, like, trying to find that, a lot of times we're using our vehicle, we're camping, we're using a cooler in the truck, we're bringing gas cans, and we're living out of a vehicle so we can change locations and cover all this area to be able to find these animals. And so you build this skill set of like being able to truck camp, being able to move locations, and it's a fine balance between using your vehicle to change locations, but then also working hard to hike to these different points and vantage points and getting out of the vehicle and really going hard. That's where you kill animals. It's everybody can stick binos and a spotting scope out their window and look, and so those spots are pretty much hunted out, at least in the high pressure units where we're at. So you really got to get in there. So it's using your vehicle, but then it's also like building this backpack skill set where you can carry your camp on your back, everything you need, and you can do 2-3 days in an area. You can get back further and deeper in an area and live in there. Or like a week-long trip, like what you did in Colorado, like packing everything you need for 7 to 10 days and going in there and living. And so there's just all these skill sets that go into being successful. It isn't just being able to stalk and being able to shoot. It's also building your wood sense, being able to keep yourself safe during storms, being able to navigate country. Like, there's all this that goes into it. But I will say that the best teacher out there is just to have this drive and this vision, and just to want adventure in your life, and just to send it. Go for it. Like, whatever it is, like pick up a tag. Like, Arizona's over the counter down in the desert. Pick up a tag and go down there in some habitat you've never been and start trying to figure it out. And once you can figure out a few of these places, it seems like that skill set is now interchangeable, where you can go anywhere. You can go to Alaska and go hunt caribou. You can go to Hawaii and go hunt axis deer, or you can go, the coolest adventures out there are the ones for deer and elk in the lower 48 and antelope and bear and the stuff we get to hunt out west. But just taking these adventures and going for it, and you're going to have failure along the way, but it's learn from it, progress your hunting skill set, progress your knowledge, progress your confidence, and it's amazing what starts coming together once you start putting those skills together. Once you start, once you build that base, animals, you just start notching more tags.
Yep, 100%. And it's like, through all those adventures and going places and just transposing country. That's the one thing that I've gotten really good at. Well, I wouldn't say really good at, but a lot better at, is it's like now I'm starting to gain more experience in different terrain, in, out in the prairie, up in the mountains, all over. And it's like you start to transpose the areas that, animals like, and it's like, say this bear spot, it's like I just basically, if I was a bear, I was last year when I was looking at this, I was like, God, this would be it, and so I thought, and just start transposing these places. And it's like, I went into a couple places last year where I didn't find one. And you and I have always talked about this. It's like big bucks, big bulls. It's like, I don't really believe they're ghosts. You know what I mean? Like everybody talks about like a goat, one that just never is seen. It's like, yeah, there's probably some that are a little bit harder to glass, but it's like, if you're diligent on your glassing and moving your vantages, it's like you're going to find something. But my point of this is, it's like when you don't, like last year in a bear spot, when I didn't find it, it's like I just moved. Like I picked up my camp, I picked up all my stuff, and it's like, okay, I don't think he's here. Like it looks great, and it's like, but I've glassed it morning and night, and it's like nothing. So it's like I moved, and then boom, found bears. Say the last year in Colorado, same thing. It's like I rolled into that range, and it's like, oh, this looks good, but glassed it morning and night, didn't see anything. So it's like I just kept rolling until I found them. And it's like going through all those different hunts, all those different adventures. It's like the one thing I've really started to pick up on is like transposing different country into what critters like, but also if I don't find them there, being willing to pack up everything and go find a new spot within that range, or like you said, get out, go to the pickup, drive around, go to a new spot. I don't think a lot of guys or gals, whatever, are just willing to pick everything up and go to the next spot. Like, I just don't believe in ghosts, It's like, so if you don't find them, I'm just so willing to pick everything up now and move. Whereas, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, I would just hang out and just hope that, oh, I'm just missing him. It's like, that's the one thing I think that's really led to my success. It's like, and I've learned it from you, is just being so mobile and moving around until you find them. Because once you're in the party, whether it be bucks, bulls, bears, whatever, it's like, then you're in them. Now, then it's time. Then it's go time. And it's like, but you've got to be full send from the get go to just find them and be willing to move country, to get into different spots, use the pickup like you're saying, and then get out, go check over a ridge or get way up into a basin or backpack. It's just being willing to do the necessary things that aren't easy, but necessary.
Yeah, it's a spot on. It's like, you're right. Being mobile, continuing to move until you find the party or find the animals, and believing that you're covering country the right way, glassing the right places at the right times, and if they're not there, you continue to move. So it is, you have to be nomadic. Like it's like the day and age of sticking a wall tent in someplace and hunting for 10 days. You just don't keep into animals that way. It's just like you have to continue to move and continue to cover country until you find where the bucks like and where the bulls like. I also like how you were inclusive there and said gals. I'm sure we do have 3 listeners that listen to the podcast that are girls, so that was really nice of you as well. No, there's some great bow hunting women out there that really go getters that get after it. But yeah, I think the majority of my audience, I don't think there's many women that follow the podcast, but there are some that fall in love with it like we do and go really hard. But I just thought that was funny being inclusive. But I got to get into spot and stalk elk with you. Like the time's just cruising by so quick because the conversation's so good. But I'm really impressed. Like, you've spent a lot of your time, like a lot of your skill set was built on the foundation of elk hunting. Montana, you fell in love with it at a young age, and you've chased them with a bow for a long time. But I think it's wild. Like, we just have a different approach to elk than 90% of guys out there. So we don't bring any calls with us. We never make a peep, never make a sound. And I think it was developed out of hunting high-pressure areas and trying to target those big herd bulls, as we just learned really quick that, they don't come into calls that often. They will come into calls, and guys do kill big bulls with calls. But I also find, like, a lot of the bulls that respond to calls are the satellite bulls that are hanging around, and those aren't the bulls that we're trying to target. And so we've developed this skill set of spot and stalking bulls. And as I talk to different guys and talk around the country, I find that are hunting these elk. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of guys that do it the same way that we do, but I find that our methods of hunting these elk, keeping quiet, keeping the element of surprise, really developing our spot and stalk skill set for these elk, man, now we're just reaping the benefits of some of these giant herd bulls that we're able to kill through developing this skill set. But it isn't something you just decide on one stalk or one play on an elk. Like for me and you, I believe it's been a progression of like the last, 10, 15 years, however long, I've been chasing elk this way, of really leaving my calls in the truck and really paying my dues spot and stalk. And I have blown some giant bulls and blown some scenarios and things that just makes my heart hurt. But through the trials and tribulations, like, you learn and you progress and you get to be really good at shadowing the herd and coyoting the herd and following them, really good at trying to find your right moment to close in, really good at reading winds, learning elk behavior, all those things that go into being successful. But I do think that our elk hunting methods are not the common way to hunt them, or is not what the majority of guys are doing. I think it's such a great bag to have such a great skill to have in the bag, or such a great tool to have in your toolbox, even if you use all different methods. Even if you call and you'll cow call and you'll bugle, but then you'll also stalk when you get that chance, or when you see that right scenario develop. But that spot and stalk for elk being quiet, it's so deadly, isn't it?
Oh, it's the best. Yeah, it's the best. And yeah, you want to talk about failures in that. I've got way more than good ones. But yeah, the one thing that I like about it, it's like, when I think about stalking elk, and like the good ones that I've got, it's like it wasn't the typical like bedded mule deer type stalk, or this bear feeding in a meadow. It's like you say, it's like shadowing them. It's like I was keeping with them, and then, maybe it didn't materialize right away, but then they settle down to where, like, maybe they're going to bed for the day, or they get to their feeding feature, in the evening. And it's like, it's more of it's moving with them through country, and then trying to pick a spot to, cut them off. And that's my favorite. Like, I've killed one bull bedded, like actual just glass, boom, see him, go kill him. But the rest of them have always been on their feet, and I'm just shadowing them, like you're saying, and sticking with them, and then waiting for that moment where maybe they just go over through a saddle, and it's like, okay, go cut them off and kill them, or maybe you get in close, like a couple years ago, got in close to their cows to his cows while they were feeding, milling around. All of them were like 19 to 40 yards from me. And the big herd bull was on the far side at, 80, 85, raking a tree, doing his thing. But I just knew he would circle around and come get his cows. And it's like, those are the kind of stalks that I just love. And yeah, you want to talk about deadly. It's like, I almost feel like it's on my terms when I'm stalking them like that. It's like, I'm just sticking with them, keeping the wind right. And it's like, I'm just waiting for my all in time. I'm just waiting for that one moment where it's like, yep, his day's done. Like, now it's time to go. And, I never pack a call. I don't even pack a call to stop them. It's like, because usually in those scenarios, you don't have to. It's like, you're just in their wheelhouse and they have no idea you're around. So there's no reason to stop them. It's like, you just let them do their natural thing, and you just be inside a bow range. And yeah, just the most deadliest way. Plus, I don't think I'm probably a very good caller anyway. I don't think I've ever given it a chance, but stalking them, those big bulls, it's like the hardest part. I feel like, I mean, gosh, keeping the wind right and everything, but it's just finding those big bulls, and getting them in a vulnerable spot. Because it's like, a few years ago, it's like, I was at full draw on this bull 3 different times going up this big drainage. But I was tailing them that morning because they were going up drainage, and downhill thermal. So it was one of those situations where I knew I couldn't get up in front of them to cut them off, because I'd blow them out. The wind would just come down into them. So I had to really tail them. And it was like every time they went around a bend, every time they went around a corner, I would quick walk up to the corner, try and get in a bow range. And then I would be on the outer limits of my bow range. And I was like, nope, I'll wait for a better opportunity. Cause I don't know how many elk he had or how many cows he had, 19, 20 of them. But no elk in that herd knew I was there. So I just kept waiting, just kept lurking in the shadows as they went up the drainage that morning, and, it ended up paying off. But yeah, the most deadly and most thrilling way to hunt elk, I think, is just keeping with them. The sounds you get to hear them make, you get to see them just do their thing. And yeah, when the all in moment comes and the time's right, oh, there's nothing better.
Yeah, that's I want to talk about that moving stock, but you just made so many good points there. Like, yeah, those elk, it is a deadly tactic. To be able to go in, and it is thrilling. Me and you have fallen in love with it, and I don't know if there's a more thrilling way to kill an elk than calling them in, but I have sure fallen in love with watching elk be elk. Like they just they're interacting in their natural environment without a predator. They're just not on edge. Like a lot of these bulls that I've called in over the years, and I've called in, like when I first started, I spent my first 10 years calling and killing bulls that way and helping my buddies kill bulls that way, and I found these bulls always come in on pins and needles, and they're looking for that cow or they're looking for the hunter. They're so on edge that a lot of times you get them in bow range and just don't get a shot or the right angle because they're so on pins and needles. But I find in their natural environment when they're rutting, they're just elk being elk. They're out there feeding and they're rutting and they're bugling. And some of these hunts where we're tailing a big party of elk or we're into them, there's nights where I hear 300 bugles or 500 bugles, and it finally gets dark and I've got a long walk by camp, and I just can't believe what I've just experienced through through the mountains or through this elk hunt. But the point that I think's important about spotting and stalking elk is the moving meditation, or the moving stock. It's like you have to adapt to the situation you're given. It's not this methodical, planned out stalk or play like you mentioned for mule deer, where early season mule deer, you're really sitting back and you're watching the mountain and you're waiting for that buck to bed, and once he beds, you're waiting for him to get to his afternoon bed. You get better winds, better thermals, and then your stalk is this calculated, slow play of being able to move around him and close in to where his exact position is that Elk, it just doesn't happen that way. Just like you stated, you've killed one bull in his bed. I know I've stalked a lot of bulls in their beds over the years. You get chances here or there, but the majority of mine, or all of my elk, have been on their feet. And sometimes it's you follow them to the timber they bed in, and then I'll wait for evening when they come out and they're out in the open again. Elk are really tough to hunt in that timber stuff, to go in after them, spotting and stalking. And sometimes if they're just moving in, you can move in with them in that thick timber. I have had success stalking bulls if I know their exact location in the timber, but for the most part, I want to stalk them on their feet. And so you see these elk and they may be in a prime position, but by the time you get into that position or get into that space, everything's changed. The elk are in a different spot. They've moved, a quarter mile, or moved around the meadow, or they're starting to move to their bedding ground. And so, like, hunting elk, it is this moving stock where you constantly have to adapt to the situation you're given. So you might see elk down in a drainage and they're in a good spot, but by the time I get there, everything's going to move. So what I need to do is I need to get in close, and then I rely upon, again, this hunting skill set. I rely on my ridgeline assaults, like being able to come over to ridgelines and see the elk before they see me. That's the whole game with this spot and stalk. keeping the element of surprise, not letting these elk know that they're being hunted, and not letting these elk see you before you see them. And so you get down to that spot, and you always have to relocate them again. And so I may get down to this drainage where I saw these elk, they're in a perfect spot, but I get down there, and now I get down there and I'm coming over the ridgeline slow, or I'm exposing myself through the timber really slow, and I'm glassing and I'm trying to pick out the animals and where they're at. So I'll get down there. Now the elk have moved 300 yards, and they're working up the drainage or working up through this timber. Now I need to adapt again. Now what's my next move? Well, I need to keep moving with these elk where I can see them, but maybe my wind's a little dicey, and so I don't want to get inside 300 yards. I just want to keep eyes on them. I want to see where they end up. I just want to shadow them or coyote this herd until I see it develop into something where I say, yeah, I can kill that bull right now. And so a lot of this elk hunting is this moving stock, and we use this skill set too. We use it for bears. We hunt bears on their feet the majority of the time. Now, bears don't move quite as much as elk, although that's not true. Sometimes they're moving miles. It depends on the bear you see. But if you get a bear feeding in a meadow like the one you did, it's a pretty likely chance that he's going to be there by the time you get there. But we use this moving stock on these bears. We use the moving stock on late season deer because those bucks never stop moving and they're always running those does. And sure, we get chances when they're bedded and get a good play at them, but for the most part, it's when they're on their feet in this moving stock. And that is our primary method of taking these elk. It is this moving stock, adapting to the situation we're given, keeping the element of surprise. And so you do this day after day. Maybe we don't get a stock every day, but you do this season after season, multiple encounters of shadowing these herds and trying to get in close. And a lot of times it doesn't come together. I can think of elk seasons where, I shadow a lot of herds and I move into bow range and I can shoot every cow in the group, but the bull's just on the outside of it or just on the outside and I never get a shot at him, or the bull leaves all his cows to go fight another bull, or there's a million different scenarios that can happen there, but I just keep tailing these herds. I just keep shadowing them. I just try to put myself in these positions and try to get in close and realize when I have the conditions right to go in. But it's definitely this moving a stock as you adapt as you go, adapt to the situation you're given, and then you make decisions and you go for it and you continue to move with these elk. And the longer you can play the game, the better your chances of sticking that bull.
Oh yeah. Yep. The one thing that I really liked what you said that I've really taken to heart probably the last couple years is on these stalks, when you're shadowing them, or like say my bear in the meadow, it's like when you lose sight of them and when you're shadowing them, that relocating them, it's like that was one thing that I used to stalk to a spot, or I used to shadow something and like have a preconceived notion of, oh, this is where I'm going. More like a location instead of just reacting and relocating them. Now, the biggest thing for me that I think where I've really turned the corner on a lot of these stocks and it's really upped my success is once I get into that, say I get into that 150 range, or I have to top a hill like you were saying, or come up into a bench kind of like on that bear stock, really come up slow and take the time to relocate them, and it's like if you lose sight of them, don't make big drastic moves to relocate them. Like say this bear, I came up and I lost him for a little bit, just out of sight, and it was a good approach, and then I came up and I took the time and I couldn't find him, and I knew, I was like, unless he put away in the timber, I know he's still right there. So I just took a little step, kept glassing, take a little step. And then finally it's like, oh, he's right behind all those aspens. There was a pine in the way. If I would have just kept mobbing and got worried that, he moved off, I would have lost him. But it's that relocating, that is so crucial. And it's like on these elk, same thing. You might turn a bend and they might have boogied and took a shortcut over the next one. And so instead of, maybe rushing it, it's like just taking the time, relocate them, make small moves before you make the big moves. And I think that's, like I said, a real big contributing factor of like becoming more successful on stocks like this is if you do, when you are shadowing them or trying to cut them off, it's like make the small moves to relocate them and not big moves,
So right. And having preconceived notions of where those animals are, like we all do it, where we think that animal's going to be. But it's amazing as you come slow over a ridge and you think that elk's right in front of you. And if you're slow enough and you don't give yourself away, all of a sudden you catch those elk and they're way down to the right. They've moved. But if you make the big moves, like you're saying, you give yourself away and you blow up the stalk and it's all over. And it can be the biggest bull in the world and you can be trailing them for 4 hours and you come over too fast over a ridge line, or you think that bull's somewhere where he's not. They just bust you. The stalk's over with. That was your chance. And so you're right. It's so key being able to relocate them. Like, that's where the game is played. And I think pace, too. Like, you talk about being really slow coming over those ridge lines and relocating those elk. And I think that's super crucial. But you also you can't be moving at this slow, stealthy pace all the time, or these elk will walk away from you. There's a time to move fast. There's a time to jog, and then there's a time to move ultra slow and be the hands of the clock. And I think learning this pace while stalking these elk of when to move quick, when to move slow, and the closer you get, the slower you start to move. And you start to think it's not going to be me that's going to screw this up. I'm not going to give away my element of surprise. If I come over too slow and the elk have worked out a bow range, so be it. I'll adapt again and make another play or another approach. But I think it's really knowing what pace to have. There is a time when you're trying to make up ground on elk where they may be moving up a drainage and you're a mile away, where you're jogging up a drainage or hiking as quick as you can out of sight to try to make up ground on them. But then knowing that when I come over this ridge and I'm going to expose myself to where I think these elk are, this is where I really need to slow down and take a step in glass. And just like you did with that bear, not seeing that bear, you could have continued to go hard to try to find him in there, but you knew you were looking at the right location. You're looking at the last spot that bear was. He's got to be in here somewhere. Unless he put away, he's got to be in here. And just giving it that few minutes for that bear to step out from behind that tree or walk out from those aspens, all of a sudden you created that play where if you would have gone too quick and kept trying to hunt your way to that bear through there, he would have caught you and busted you and the stalk would have been over. So I think it's really important to slow down, like you're saying. The relocate is one of the biggest parts of being successful, but also just knowing that pace to take on a stalk.
Yeah, no, and it's like we said in the beginning, it's like just always being in a bow hunter's mindset, right? It's like you start, some people might be, well, what is the pace? It's like the more you hike around the woods with your bow, the more stalks you put on things. It's like that bow hunter's mindset. I mean, that's what's going to lead you to those answers, because everybody hunts a little bit different, but it's like the more you take that bow out, the more stalks you go on, and then that pace becomes almost second nature. Then you don't question that pace anymore. It's like, when it's time to jog, when it's time to crawl, creep, take off your boots, it's like, or crawl. It's just like, there's no doubt about it. It's just becomes second nature and it becomes your style. The more you're out there, the more you're mixing it up. That's where that pace is developed. And I really like that because it's like everybody has a little different pace, I mean, you and I are pretty similar, but like say my brother, he is so methodical and slow, it's like he hunts way different than I do, and it's just like everybody develops their own pace that works for them, but the more you're out there, you just have to be out there and be in a bow hunter's mindset as often and as much as you can. And that's where that pace becomes developed. You don't question your moves, and that's when things really start developing.
It is. Your brother's turning into a great bow hunter as well. Arrowed a good bull last year, showed grit, perseverance. He's starting to get it done on the regular now with his bow as well. And there isn't a wrong way to do it. You develop this different pace or this style of hunting, and even though your brothers may be different than your style, you guys are both still getting it done. So it is experience is the best teacher. It's getting out there, it's having these adventures and having these failures. We talk about the successes and we did touch on failures in this episode, but still, even thinking of that, the elk hunting or the late season deer, I can think of 4 stalks or 5 stalks that didn't go my way before the one that I finally got it done on. And you try to make these solid moves, and it's important not to take shortcuts on a stalk. Like, if you don't think it's going to work, or you think you're going to get seen, it's not going to work. You're going to get seen. It just, like, every stalk has to be really important. That opportunity, you have to realize what kind of opportunity that you have there. Don't take any shortcuts. Only try to make the right moves, because you are going to fail on these stalks, and the longer you do it, you find like how keen the instincts of these animals are, whether it's elk or mule deer or bear, that you make one mistake with the wind, or you make one mistake exposing yourself or giving that element of surprise, the gig's up. And we may have walked who knows how many miles we have in to getting that stock, 10, 20 miles to creating this opportunity. And I just know, to me, I have to make all the right moves. I can't give myself away just to give myself a chance at it. But you're gonna fail. You're gonna need multiple opportunities, and that's what Dan says too. Is like, he needs more than one opportunity.
Yep.
He needs to find enough deer to create multiple opportunities to get it done, because there's a good chance that he's not going to get it done on his first stalk. And me and you included, as good as we get at this game and this spot and stalking, we still fail on stalks, because it's such a tough challenge. These animals are so keen that they are going to catch you. You are going to make mistakes, or sometimes they just walk away from you, or you have a doe that catches you. There's going to be things that go wrong. And so after that, you try to learn from it and say, well, what could have I done different on that stalk? And I try not to beat myself up on stalks, and I also try not to let it be the end of the world. I can be stalking a giant buck and it falls apart, and sure, sometimes I get frustrated, but for the most part, it's just like I just say, well, that's just bow hunting. It's just the way it is. It's time to go find another one. What's my next move? I've got to regroup. I've got to go find a different buck. It's just you. I don't like failure, but I do get good at accepting it and moving on, and just knowing it's part of the game, and that I need to go create another opportunity. And once I do create that opportunity, I can't go in haphazard. I can't break a stick going in, or I can't try to cheat this wind when I know the wind isn't right. After I fail a couple times, it's like this stock is so important that I need to make all these little moves, all these crucial moves, never take a shortcut, never expose myself, really put my full effort into a stock, just to be able to give myself a chance at harvesting that animal. So I think it's important not to take any shortcuts, not to try to force the issue, continue to show patience, move in and close in. And the longer that you can play the game with these animals and have them not know you're there, the better chance you have at killing them. And even one of those late season bucks I chased last year that I didn't end up harvesting, I had a great all-in moment where I got into bow range. I jumped a doe getting in close to him that I didn't know was there. Situation kind of blew up. It was that big heavy 3. I don't know if you saw him with the big backs and so heavy. I'm sure you did, the wide one. Yeah.
Oh, no, didn't see the wide one. Nope, I saw the other one. Coke can?
Oh, yeah, you saw the Coke can one. Yeah. Or the Coke can one was the one I was chasing in there. Yeah.
Yep.
But I chased that buck for 3 days. I backed out on 2 different stalks. I never let that buck know I was hunting him, and so I got multiple opportunities at him. Now, I didn't kill that buck in the end. I had my great all-in moment, spooked that doe. It didn't come together. I never saw that buck again, but I had one chance at that buck, but I ended up getting to hunt him for 3-4 days, relocating him in there just because I never blew him out of there. I never exposed myself. I kept playing the game, and dang near got him killed. Or my high country buck last year in Colorado, I hunted for 7 days. I spent 2 entire days laying within 150 yards of that buck, waiting for my right opportunity, and then would back out of there with a good win. Never let that buck know I was hunting him. Just keeping that element of surprise, and just like keeping the game progressing, keeping in the game, knowing where that buck is. I think it's really important not to take shortcuts, not to move in and try to make something happen all the time, like really sitting back and being patient. It's this fine line between patience and aggression. Like you're never going to kill a buck that you don't go after. Eventually, you've got to stalk. Eventually, you've got to go all in and got to try to make it happen. But you just want it to be right when you move in. Everything has to be right to kill an animal. With a bow and arrow, it is one of the most difficult challenges out there to put yourself into bow range, execute a perfect shot. It happens to me multiple times in a season, but it never comes easy. It's always has to be this play that I make, or a great play where I don't give myself away, keep the element of surprise. But it is such a fine balance, and I think the only way you find that balance is what we keep coming back to in this podcast, is experience. Taking on adventures, taking on experience, making stalks, failing, really learning from it, and that really makes us into the bow hunters that we are. Just that experience. It's such a great teacher, and you can further the learning curve by, I learned by talking to you, getting your insight on things. You learn from podcasts and read books, and you can further your knowledge base. You can shorten the learning curve, but eventually you've got to take that knowledge that you've gained, or these lessons that you've learned through these different hunters or through this media, and now you've got to go apply it in the field and have your own hunt and your own adventure and make your own mistakes.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's the hard way. I like what you said. No shortcuts. It's like usually sometimes the red carpet's rolled out for you, but usually the hard way is the right way. And there is a fine line between, you've got to be patient and wait for the right moment, but you've also got to have a little aggression. And for guys that maybe don't go on a lot of stalks, it's like the only way you learn, 90% of it is by failing, and it's like, you've got to get in there, mix it up, and figure out what works or what doesn't. I mean, you don't want to go in with just complete reckless abandonment, but you just sometimes, like, when you think, say you're just a guy that doesn't know when the all-in moment is, get the wind right, get him in a good spot, and go for it, because that's how I learned. I mean, I've said this before, but like my first antelope, that first year took me 35 stalks. I was probably over aggressive, but I learned on every single one, every single one. And that right there has turned me and shaped me into the bow hunter that I am. It's like 35 stalks. I learned so much, what works, what doesn't. It's like, you can't crawl through blades of grass, get to your knees and shoot them. Like, that just don't work. Like, but no, it's learning, being in a bow hunter's mindset, being just a student of the game, and being willing to go for it. It's like, if you've turned them up once and you've got a play in front of you and you say it doesn't work out, you just can't be afraid to go turn them up again. It's like, roll the next ridge, go through the next saddle, turn them up again, and get another play. But no, so much fun. Gosh, dude, it just gets me juiced up. I wish I had another bear tag.
Yeah, season's coming. You just said that so well, Dillon. That is the essence of bow hunting. Failing and learning and going for it. It's part of the beauty of it, and being a student of the game, constantly learning and evolving. And that's one thing that you're really good at. You're not resting on your laurels or your achievements from last year. You're continuing to push and drive, continuing to learn, adapt, evolve. You're an absolute student of the game. And dude, I am so impressed. And I know, I said it at the beginning of the podcast. I told you the other day when I talked to you, I'm just so impressed by your bow hunting prowess. Like, you've created this bow hunting life for yourself, where you've really committed yourself to the game, and to watch you have this consistent success all throughout the country in different species. This bear success, arrowing your first bear, man. I couldn't be prouder to call you a friend, and I'm just so impressed at your bow hunting prowess, man. And by the way, this has got to be a regular thing. I got to get you on here every month or every couple months, and we got to sit down and chat, because I really enjoy these.
Cool, man. I appreciate it all. And yeah, likewise. And yeah, you let me know when you want to get on the horn and record them. I'll do them whenever. So,
man, we got some good bow hunting coming up, don't we? It's going to be a fun season.
Oh my gosh, yeah. If we draw any more tags, I don't know if we're gonna have any more time. It's like, oh my goodness. But I need one more. I need an early one. Like, I
I
need
do
an
too. I need one more.
early
So,
one. We've got
yep.
enough. We've got plenty of late stuff. Yeah, I need one more. I need I need an early one. But
Yeah.
yep, beggars can't be choosers. I'll take what I can get. But yeah, it's gonna be a riot. Want to talk about bow hunting? Holy smokes, we got a full one. So.
Yep. Well, congrats again, buddy. I appreciate it. We'll
Thank
talk to
you.
you soon.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Man, I really like Dillon Ness. He's such a stand-up human being, great hunting partner, great fishing partner. In fact, he's going to be out here this Saturday. We have a bachelor party for my buddy Dan Hevern, who's getting married. So we're going to go fish the Madison with a handful of guys and go throw some dry flies. So anyways, great guy, always willing to share insight. We get pretty fired up when we talk to each other. So we may have said like too many times. I noticed Dillon started saying it and I started saying it too. It's like you get two buddies together and get us excited about bow hunting and we sound like a couple Valley girls, but hopefully didn't distract from the podcast and the information there because there's some great information. So yeah, I really like that guy, and thanks to him for taking the time being on. I'm gonna record more with him here every time I get together with him, or in the future, link up and have some more of my buddies on here again and chat about what we all love to do, bow hunting. So. Make sure to check us out. Again, we've got that live speaking gig we're going to do. It's in Heber City, Utah. It's July 20th. We're going to do a dinner. I have an hour-long talk planned. We're going to do question and answers. Should be a great time. I'm super excited just to have the opportunity to speak at some of these gigs. So we just wrapped up Western Hunting Summits. We did 3 of those, had some amazing talks on those. I also want to get you guys those recordings of me speaking, or I'll just get on here and record them again for deer and for elk and just try to give you that pertinent information as we're getting close to season. Yeah, we'll get those recorded here. Keep working hard. Keep working towards season. It's going to be a fun one. I want to thank our sponsors for today's show. I want to thank Matthews, just incredible bows with that V3X. I also want to thank Sig Sauer Optics. So impressed by their rangefinders, image stabilizing binos. They have standard binos that are great quality, and also their spotting scope. Their spotting scope is amazing with an 80 mil objective lens, and then it's got a 27 by 55 power eyepiece that goes in it, and it's pretty much see the world with that thing. It's great scope. So if you're in the market for some new optics, make sure to check out Sig Sauer, and make sure to check out everything we're doing over here at Eastmans. Check out the Beyond the Grids. Check out our Tag Hub Internet Research Tool. We also have a premium membership where you get Beyond the Grid episodes early. Both magazines. Love writing for both magazines. Have an article coming up in the new Bow Hunting Journal. Gosh, you're going to put me on the spot. I can't remember what it is. I remember it was a good one. I remember I was trying to write it before I left for that Hawaii vacation. So I had a handful of days to get that thing done, but turned out really good. Can't think of what it is. But I'm sure it turned out good. I'm sure it's a good read. Check it out in the Eastman's Bow Hunting Journal. And, man, I'm just going to keep working hard here, get these jobs in shape, and work as hard as I can to get to hunting season. It's going to be awesome. Cut these legs loose, go do some rips in the mountains, and go chase some mule deer, elk. Got that moose tag and antelope tag. So it's going to be a busy season for me, and that's just the way I like it. So hope you guys have some good adventures planned. And, keep working hard towards your goals. Season's going to be here before we know it. So I'm making sure my legs are ready, lungs are ready. Been getting in my runs here, and getting done with construction work is the main thing for me right now to free up some time. But really nice to spend some time with my family over the 4th, and then took my oldest daughter to one of those summits with me. Amazing to spend the weekend with her and go hiking and camping. So that was pretty fun. And now I just got to sneak my younger daughter out here for a fishing trip, see if she can come with me here in the next couple weeks and go do that. But spending some great family time, and It's been really fun. So summer's gonna go quick. It seems like a blur right now, but fall is coming, guys. The season we've been waiting all year for. So keep working hard towards your goals. And with that, I'll check in with you next week.